Yaws, and I'm from Harleton, Texas. While I've lived in Harleton my whole life, I actually did most of my schooling at a private school in our city called New Hope Christian Academy. It was there where I discovered my love for Jane Austen, Emily Bronte, and basically anything that came from the Victorian era. In this semester, I was given the opportunity to do a research essay, and my mind immediately went to the Victorian theme, temperance. Since I don't live very far away from Morris County, which is the home of Morris Sheppard, who wrote the 18th Amendment, the Prohibition Amendment, I'd always been very curious about how the whole nation was able to outlaw alcohol. So I immediately began to research the political fight of Wayne Wheeler, Morris Sheppard, Carrie Nation, the Anti-Saloon League. But then I realized that all the research had already been done. There wasn't any new points of views to go from in this story. I did, however, discover that there were many films made about Prohibition because the early 20th century had witnessed the birth of a new silent film era. And many of these films were actually on YouTube now. So as I began to watch these films, I realized that they were really boring. I mean, they didn't have any sound, they were black and white, they just weren't as eye-catching as movies are now. But then I began to realize that in my psychology class last year, we discussed body movement and body language and ways you can move your body to display messages and how it can be more impactful than words sometimes. Psychological experiments show that a person with great body language can say very little, but still best another who seems uncomfortable and has many wise things to say. So I began to reason that these films could have had an amazing impact on the people, because that generation had never seen anything like this before. This was brand new. They could visualize the truths on the screen and not just hear them. They could see the emotions on the screen. And emotion is what really gets people to act. My study on the emotions of Prohibition in film suggests that the temperance stories from these producers such as D.W. Griffith deserve much of the credit for Prohibition, perhaps even more than the political leaders of the time. For example, one of the most important temperance stories is titled A Drunkard's Reformation. This is the story of a drunkard, his wife, and his young daughter. The story starts off miserably. You see how greatly the wife and daughter are impacted by the drunkard and how his life is tearing theirs down. You can see their shoulders are hunched, their eyes are weary, and their brow is furrowed in defeat. You can just see this. You don't even have to hear anything from them. But later, the daughter convinces the husband to go see a play with her at the theater. And this play is what really gets the drunkard to think. On the screen, he sees basically his life being acted out before him, and he's embarrassed to see it. The play is about a drunkard and how his life really impacts those around him in a negative way. After the play is over, he immediately runs away with his daughter to see his wife so he can apologize to her about all the things he had done and put her through. And he made sure that she knew that he was going to do his best to come over this addiction and to do better for them. And you could just see, it was like a weight had been lifted from the mother and the daughter. Their shoulders straightened, their eyes were bright, they had genuine smiles on their faces that reached their eyes. It was amazing. And I believe it was temperance stories like these that really showed people that alcohol was a toxic monster that needed to be rid of. So I began to realize that these films weren't boring at all. They showed emotion. You didn't just hear it with their voice, and that was so impactful. Because young people of this generation were always being told things they didn't really even believe. Moral truths that seemed confining and rigid to them. But with these films, they could see it for themselves. They didn't have to listen from somebody else, somebody maybe they didn't respect or didn't believe in wholeheartedly. But these films showed them the truth of alcohol. And I believe it was in this context that America was able to go dry. These films were a bright new medium that were able to push America to embrace Prohibition. Thank you very much for considering my poster and my video for this scholarship.